Jeremy from OpticHouse.com. So, I am sketching out a new piece here, and there's that eternal question of where do artists get their ideas from? And sometimes our ideas are just as simple as what's staring us right in the eye. I was getting up one morning a couple of days ago to go for a bike ride, and as I was going going out the side gate of the house, and there's some hedges there. And I noticed a large red wasp kind of hovering right by the hedges, right by the gate. And I saw this same wasp there like maybe 2 days in a row, or at least a wasp there 2 or 3 days in a row. And I thought to myself, I wonder if there's a hornet's nest inside the hedges. So I knew that at a certain point I was going to have to take a look in there and peek my head in. I thought, maybe I should put some safety glasses on, because the first thing that I imagine when I stick my beak in there is I get stung in the eye. Because that's how my brain works. I instantly imagine the most horrific shit possible whenever I think about, a potential outcome for a situation. And it's interesting because I don't draw work that is necessarily provocative for provocative sake or disturbing for disturbing sake. I do enjoy work that has those elements in it that's provocative and disturbing, makes you feel uncomfortable. But when I sit down and I make a piece, it comes from a place of how I'm actually feeling. A thought or an idea that makes my skin crawl, makes me feel creeped out. And I'm like, the things that creep me out compel me to make artwork about them. And usually, more often than not, when it creeps me out, it creeps other people out too. And an outsider could potentially see that and think, oh, he's just doing art to be shocking or doing these weird things just to be disturbing. I'm aware of what the content is and how it would make people feel, but those feelings are what made it interesting to me to draw in the first place. Like, for instance, the cover to my graphic novel, Eye of the Gods, as a man, he's floating, drowning really, in a sea of eyeballs. The book is about remote viewing, visions that the main character has that he can't control. And in the cover of that book, it's supposed to be a metaphor for him literally drowning in the visions of other people. And there's times when I'm at a comic convention, I'm sitting behind my table, and I have a big banner behind my table that has the cover of the book. And sometimes people see it and they're freaked out, like, oh, wow, this is creepy. And they come right over, which, that's a good effect. They come over because they want to check it out, find out more about this weird, disturbing image. Occasionally, I see people that walk and they look at the cover and they recoil. They're like, I'm not going anywhere near this table because that just freaks me out. And people have come by simply to tell me eyeballs really freak me out and then walk away from my table as quickly as possible. And I will tell you that is fine by me. Not because I don't want them to be a reader of my work, but it means that it's doing what it's meant to do. It tapped into the primal thing. And even if that creeps them out so much that they don't want to give the work a chance, that's fine. I don't fault them for saying, I have a line and this feels like it crosses it. There isn't really much body horror in the actual graphic novel itself. But that cover is definitely the tone that I was going for. I'm a fan of David Cronenberg films, and it's supposed to have a little bit of a creepy Videodrome kind of vibe to it. Like, it's just like, this is unsettling and weird. So, yeah. And I wish that I had spent more time drawing insects. Not necessarily in this piece. I mean, I've got plenty of practice here to draw them. But, there's a thing that I recently thought of called reference rot. And that's when you buy a whole bunch of reference material. Art books of a certain type of artist, a book on how to use a particular application, or, just reference material if you want to study animals, a bunch of books on animals, what have you. Anything that's reference material for a creative person, and you buy all this stuff because you think it's going to make you a better creator if you sit down and you study it. But you never study it. Hence the rot. It just sits there and it rots. The books may be perfectly fine, but if you don't actually crack them open and use them, then it's like fruit that just dies on the vine. And I know specifically, years ago, I was taking a class, I think, on either like layout design or character design, and they talked about the in the class the instructor talked about how insects are really great to study for creature design. And I thought to myself, insects are disturbing and they freak people out. They're a great thing to base, as a starting point for making up your own monsters. For many things, you can take something that exists in reality and tweak it, distort it, push it, and let your imagination run wild. That's where you get the really cool shit. And I bought at least one the DK reference books that on insects. I think I may have one other book that has a lot of insect imagery in it also. And to this day, I think I've maybe done like one or two sketches out of it. I know that it's still on here. I can dig through my bookshelf and find it, but I never sat down and did a bunch of studies like I intended to. And that's something that I want to change in the future. Not just with insects. I do intend to work from that book because I feel like this piece I could have made the insects a little bit more convincing. I did have some reference, as you saw at the beginning of the drawing, there was some reference that I had by the side of my table to look at actual wasps, in terms of like looking at the wings, and even though they're not photorealistic, I'm just kind of riffing on it, but enough to get the basic feel and structure of the creatures. That said, I think if I had been drawing insects all along, not every day, but just occasionally sitting down and doing some studies, doing like a few pages, filling up a few pages of a sketchbook, here and there, just every now and again, that alone would be enough to sell them a little bit more, make them feel a little bit more convincing. And when I say convincing, I don't mean photorealistic, just that it looks and feels like what it's supposed to be. That can be a lot of different styles. It can be cartoony, it can be photorealistic, it can be illustrative, and then when you get into illustration, all manner of styles. But that said, much like the insect book, I've got tons of reference books on anatomy, on drawing animals, perspective, vehicle drawing, like every different aspect of visual illustration there is. And I buy them because I know I need to become a better artist. I know I need to be rigorous about continuing to study, about continuing to expand my visual repertoire, that there's so many things that I can't draw right out of my head. And no artist is expected to be able to draw everything in the world out of their head. You have a morgue file where you just go on Google and find some images, not to trace, but to base your image on, to make sure that it looks like what it's supposed to, that the joints connect in the right way, structurally. There's so many things that I want to continue studying, and I buy books on them, and the books just sit there on the shelf. And in the past few months, I've started going through and picking one book every month. And not one book every month, but I just pick a book, carry it around in like my day-to-day book bag, and I always try to spend like a couple hours in the week just studying from it and learning. And when I get done with that book, I pick another book on a topic that I haven't studied. So I've got a book on animal drawing I've been carrying around right now, and I'm getting more into drawing animals. And I want to start taking trips to the zoo and studying them in person. So, those are all things I'm trying to move forward. I'm trying to stamp out reference rod going forward. That's it for now. Check out my website, optichouse.com. If you enjoy these videos, please share them. Also, sign up for my weekly newsletter to get a free digital download and see what else I'm working on. Go be creative.